The message came through in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. No build-up, no context. Sign the divorce papers with no claims or I'll destroy you. I read it once, then again, not because it was confusing, but because it wasn't. There was a kind of clarity in it that hadn't existed before. No softening, no pretending this was mutual or complicated, just a direct line between what he wanted and how he expected to get it. For a moment, I set the phone down without replying, not to think about what to say, to notice what I wasn't feeling. No panic, no urgency, just recognition. This wasn't new. Only the wording was. There had always been pressure. It just used to arrive dressed as concern or practicality or timing. This was simpler, and maybe because of that, easier to respond to. I picked up my phone again and typed, "Check your email." Nothing else. I sent it before I could overthink the tone. The recordings hadn't started as a plan. That's the part people tend to misunderstand. I didn't wake up one day deciding to collect evidence. It happened gradually, almost accidentally. A conversation that didn't match what he later claimed, a disagreement that seemed to rewrite itself when retold. At first I thought it was miscommunication, then I thought it was memory. Eventually, I stopped guessing. I started keeping things, not everything, just enough, dates, messages, a few recordings when conversations felt unstable, like they might not exist the same way later. It wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about confirming what I had heard. Over time, it became a habit. Quiet. Unannounced. By the time the message came that afternoon, there was already a year of it. Not dramatic moments, not shouting, just consistency. I didn't watch my phone after sending the email. I already knew what was in it. A structured file, time-stamped, categorized, not edited, not exaggerated, just present. The first call came within minutes. I let it ring, then another. Then a message. "What is this?" I didn't answer. There wasn't anything to clarify. The tone shifted quickly after that. Not in words at first, in frequency. Calls back to back. Messages that moved from confusion to something sharper, then back again. I read them later, not as they came in. It was easier that way, less reactive. Somewhere in the middle of it, I noticed something else. Not in the recordings. Alongside them. I had been organizing everything the night before, just putting it into order, labeling files so they made sense outside my head. That's when I saw the pattern. Transactions that didn't match what I remembered. Transfers I hadn't questioned at the time because they had been explained, briefly, and then moved past. Individually, they looked ordinary. Together, they didn't. I didn't dig into it immediately. Just noted it. Another layer I hadn't fully seen before. By evening, the messages had changed. Less aggressive, more controlled. "We need to talk." That one I expected. But talking wasn't going to change anything that had already been documented. So I didn't respond to that either. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. Not urgently, not emotionally. Just methodically. I sent the same file. Not as a statement, but as information. They responded the way professionals do. Focused, precise, asking for context where needed, but not surprised by the existence of any of it. That helped. Not because it validated anything, because it placed everything into a structure that didn't rely on interpretation. When we did communicate again, it was different. Shorter, filtered, not through silence, but through distance. He didn't mention the threat again, not directly, and I didn't mention the recordings. We didn't need to. The legal process began to take shape around that. Documents replaced conversations, timelines replaced assumptions. The version of events he had been operating under no longer held, not because I argued against it, because it didn't align with what was already there. I never confronted him about the mistress, not because it didn't matter, but because it wasn't the part that needed to be addressed. People make choices. The problem had never been the choice. It had been the expectation that I would adjust around it. The financial discrepancies came up later, not as an accusation, as a question, and even then I didn't push it as far as I could have, not out of restraint, out of clarity. I already had enough to define what needed to change. There wasn't a moment where everything resolved, no final conversation where things were understood or acknowledged. just a gradual shift. The pressure that had once shaped my decisions no longer had anything to attach to, and without that, it lost its effect. Sometimes I think about that message, "I'll destroy you." It feels distant now, not because it wasn't real, because it depended on something that no longer exists. The recordings are still there, filed, organized, not as leverage, as a record of what I stopped trying to reinterpret. And that, more than anything, is what changed.